all you wonderfully wicked witches out there. This is Wyrd Witchcraft. Weird with a Y because we know what that means. If you don't, I'll explain it later. Hey, if you don't identify as a witch, that's fine. I still know that you're a beautiful, magical being, and I thank you for stopping by. I'm your host, Lynn Stevens, and I welcome you to the Earth. It's time to grab your favorite beverage and sit down by the fire as we talk about witches, witchcraft, the unseen world, and everything in between. In today's episode, it's a little bit of a special episode, obviously, because this is my very first episode. It's the first time I'm doing this. So, what am I going to do in this episode? I'm going to explain to you a little bit about what the format of this podcast is going to be going forward, and we can just go from there. So it's probably going to be a bit of a shorter episode, obviously, but yeah. Hi, welcome. It's me. It is I. So how did Wyrd Witchcraft come about? Well, quite frankly, this has kind of gone through a few iterations. Like, I've done little talk sessions with people that, I mean, could be considered little podcasts because you're sitting down and discussing a specific topic or what have you. I've done, the video readings and all that kind of stuff, and I've even done ones where I just kind of talk about certain things that have affected my life, and seems like a podcast to me. And I had a friend of mine that was doing a podcast, and I was on quite a few episodes of that. And all through all of that, I thought to do my own, and never did. And that's where this comes in. So I'm finally doing it. Now, the format going forward is going to be, I've broken it down into 3 types of episodes. So the first type, obviously, I will have guests, where I ask them about their life and how witchcraft or paganism has affected their life and how they use it in their everyday, day-to-day stuff, or special projects that they might be doing, or things that they have incorporated in their life that has taken them on this journey and on this path, and maybe even something to do with like their belief systems and all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be dependent on each guest, of course, right? And I think those will be really fun because, I mean, what podcast is a podcast without guests, right? And my phone just went off, and that's another thing that I wanted to mention about this podcast. It's going to be very casual, so there may be interruptions. There may be stuff like the cat was trying to get out earlier in another recording, because this is like the 20th time I've done this. And, yeah. This is my life. You're here, you're visiting, you're sitting by my fire, makeshift, not real fire, the dog. But you're here, you're visiting, we're having a chat, and interruptions are going to happen, stuff's going to happen. So this is going to be a casual podcast, and yeah. And as we keep going forward, there's also going to be what I would want to call, I guess, story time episodes, where I have a lot of poetry and a lot of stuff that I've written, so I can either recite poetry and things I've written, or if I have people that are submitting stuff that they've done, like if they have poetry or short stories or even like books that they want read, maybe I'll do excerpts from books and such. But it has to be where the copyright, like it's something that belongs to you, that you are allowing me to read. But I figured that'd be kind of fun, having like a little story time, or even, somebody sends me a thing like, hey, this is something that happened to me that I found really interesting. If you've ever listened to CBC radio, they used to always have the one guy that would read people's letters about stories that happened that came, like, they would send in these letters, and he would read their stories on the radio. And I always found that fun. It was fascinating. So it's like if you have like an encounter with a ghost, or there was, hey, this one time I joined a circle and the weird crap that happened, or something pertaining to witchcraft and paganism, or some kind of spiritual experience would be really interesting to read about. But I also feel like having people's poetry or short stories read so that people can experience them will also help open us up to the amazing community that we have. And sometimes people are a little bit shy about sharing their own work, but if I'm able to reach out to you and be like, hey, I'll share your work for you, um, sometimes they're a little bit more open to that. And then the third type of episode I wanted to do is more of like a talk about episode, where I take a specific topic and discuss it. Something like, I don't know, blood magic. Like, what's my take on blood magic? Doing sour jars, or simple hexes, candle spells, whatever, right? So, you know, a lot of times when we jump into something, we read an article about something, or we read a post that somebody said, oh, well, I did a this. And not a lot of people spend a lot of time researching. Even myself, sometimes I kind of shortcut research sometimes if I'm really excited and I just want to get going on something. Not often, but it happens. So I find that a lot of people take things at face value rather than researching if stuff is actually what it appears to be on the surface. So the talk about episodes, I want to do topics that maybe people take for granted or at face value that might have a different impact or a different meaning if you look a little deeper into them. So what is the purpose of a sour jar? Or why would you consider making hot foot powder? What does it entail? What does it mean to hex or curse someone? It's like it all seems really fun and interesting, and like Hollywood poof, and you got sparkles coming out of your hand. But what does it actually mean? What is that energy exchange? What takes place when we do these certain things? And is there a time and a place for everything? And, it's up to each individual to decide, obviously. But what I want to do with the talk about episodes is just kind of inundate you with all of the information that you might need to make an informed decision about a specific topic. I'm not here to judge whether or not you should be doing an attraction spell, or you should be doing, I don't know, working with poisonous plants. If you want to do it, do it. If not, I have no bearing on that. But I want to be able to give you the information that you need in order to make an informed decision as to whether or not that is something you want to do. Right? And then, so those are the three things that I want to do. So the guest episodes, the storytime episodes, and the talk about episodes. And I thought that would be a really great way to start off. A lot of times when we get great ideas, we want to do 500 different things. So I actually force myself. It's like, no, I got to narrow it down. I got to make sure that I have the necessary resources in order to do what I want to do. So I think it's going to be a fun journey. And I already have a couple guests in mind. And I have a couple topics for the talk about episodes. I still haven't really figured out what I want to do for the storytime ones yet, but we'll see. And I think going forward, I would love to get your guys' encouragement and input into what's happening. A lot of times we think we have to do stuff alone, and I've been doing stuff alone for a really long time. And I have asked for help in the past, and it's kind of all fallen through. But I think it had nothing to do with the people offering the help. It had more to do with me and my willingness to actually accept it. So this is me reaching out. This is me saying, hey, if you have ideas that are along the same vein of what I am trying to accomplish, if you have stories or people you think would be interesting to interview, and topics that you would love to be able to delve into, and not just like, hey, do this topic. If you have information and you want to help me research it, that's what I want. I don't want people to just say, hey, do a topic on this, and have me do all the research and me do all the work. I want this to be a community thing. So if you have a suggestion for me, we're going to work on it together. If you have, like, hey, you know what? I want to be interviewed. Well, we're going to have to work together and figure out what we want to talk about in those episodes. It's not just going to be up to me to come up with the content for it. We're going to work together. And that's what I want for this direction of this podcast. It's not just me talking to you. It is building a community together so that we can enrich each other's lives, really, and become better people with other people, not alone. And yeah, I don't want to have to just regurgitate stuff at you. I want people to be a part of this. And it's not just going to be me talking. Even though this episode is me just talking. and taking sips. I have tea today, so we're doing tea. Now, going forward, I think it would be interesting to see who's on board, who's ready to go. And because, this is actually quite a big time commitment. I don't think people realize that. It's like they just listen to the podcast or they watch the video and they don't really understand the amount of hours that go into editing or to researching, to doing all the things behind the scenes in order to make that podcast episode or that YouTube video or whatever come off without a hitch. And I think that's also another reason why I wanted this to be a little bit more casual. You're going to see my life in action, and I think the guests that come on are going to be authentic and genuine, and I'm looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to being able to get people's poems and stories and essays, whatever, just stuff that they've done. See? Interruptions. Life. And I'm really looking forward to this journey, and I want to see if it's got potential. And so I think I'm going to cut it here because it's, it's the first time that I've done this. So I think 15 minutes of me just babbling on is enough. So I want to thank you for stopping by and having a listen today. If you liked this episode, consider sharing it with other people. I'm going to be doing Wyrd Witchcraft stuff in the future, like a page and all that kind of stuff. So one of the other things, a friend of mine and I are in the process of working on another project, and so you'll learn about that a little bit more. I'm going to be creating an email. I don't have it yet. It's going to be wyrdwitchcraft@gmail.com. And if you have ideas for future podcasts or you want to be featured on one of them, make sure you put podcast in the subject heading and tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey as a witch or a pagan, or the topic you want to share or the things that you want to incorporate into an episode. So until I see you again, safe travels from my hearth to yours, and until we next meet again, have a wickedly wonderful, magic-filled life.